Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're taking an absolutely incredible journey, tracing the physical pathways that literally connect our modern world. We're going to explore how we evolved from using the simplest, most local transport methods, all the way up to building massive, continent-spanning railway networks. It is a fascinating story of engineering, global trade, and honestly just the sheer human drive to connect distant lands.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We've got 4 main stops on our journey today. First, we'll cover the basics of transportation. Second, the global road network. Third, we'll look at railways and global trade. And finally, we'll scale way up to transcontinental routes.
Starting off with Section 1, the basics of transportation. Before we look at massive global trade, we really have to understand the fundamental building blocks of movement.
So, have you ever seen a bride being carried in a palanquin? A dolly. Or maybe pack mules carrying heavy goods up a really steep mountain trail. In the earliest days of human history, we were actually our own carriers. Later on, animals took the literal load. And depending on the geography, humans adapted beautifully to their surroundings. We used horses, camels in the sweeping deserts, mules up in the rugged mountains, or even sledges pulled by dogs and reindeers in the snowy, freezing plains of North America, Europe, and Siberia.
Now, as all these localized, animal-trodden paths started to intersect and connect, they formed something much bigger. They created what we call a transport network. By definition, this is the pattern formed by different series of routes connecting various places. And when we look at this network on a global scale, it's divided into 4 main modes: land, water, air, and pipelines. But for today's explainer, we're keeping our boats firmly on the ground and focusing strictly on land transport.
Moving right along to Section 2, let's look at how these land routes evolved into the global road network.
And this brilliantly illustrates the incredible leap we've made. Think about that early revolution sparked by the invention of the wheel, those simple animal-drawn carts. Now, contrast that with what we have today. Modern highways are absolute marvels, engineered for massive, uninterrupted traffic flow. We're talking about separate lanes, elevated flyovers, and dual carriageways that can be up to 80 meters wide. It's a totally different world.
But you might be wondering, when exactly do we use roads and when do we rely on rails? Well, the comparison is pretty fascinating. Roads are highly economical for short distances, and they offer that absolutely crucial door-to-door service. But their major vulnerability, the weather. Even beautifully paved, metalled roads can be severely disrupted by heavy rain and floods. Railways, on the other hand, with their elevated tracks, offer a highly resilient solution. They are perfectly suited for long distances and really bulky goods, though, as you can imagine, they come with a much steeper initial construction cost.
Check out this staggering number: 15 million kilometers, or 150 lakh kilometers. That represents the entire world's total motorable roads. It's massive. But here's the catch. There's a huge regional imbalance here. A full 33% of this entire global road network is located just in North America. That region also boasts the highest road density and the highest number of vehicles, compared to places like Western Europe.
Now, when you look closely at a map, certain mega highways literally act as the economic lifeblood of their continents, allowing for totally uninterrupted traffic. We have the super-ambitious Pan-American Highway aiming to connect the Americas, and the Trans-Canadian Highway linking the east and west coasts. Over in India, the Golden Quadrilateral connects the major metros of Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, and Kolkata. Meanwhile, Africa features massive, sprawling routes like Algiers to Conakry and Cairo to Cape Town. And it's also really vital to mention that countries build crucial border roads right alongside international boundaries. This is absolutely essential for national defense and accessing remote areas.
All right, shifting gears to Section 3, railways and global trade. Let's see how long-distance, high-volume freight completely changed the game. This whole railway revolution, it absolutely did not happen overnight. It was initially sparked in the 18th century with the invention of the steam engine. Fast forward a bit to 1825, and we see the very first public railway operating between Stockton and Darlington in northern England. By the 19th century, railways had just exploded in popularity. And they did something truly incredible. They quite literally opened up the deep, untouched interiors of continents, like North America, allowing for massive commercial farming, intensive mining, and booming manufacturing.
But, it's really not all about moving grain and coal. While rail is unbeatable for heavy freight, it is also the pulsing lifeblood of urban passenger transit. Commuter trains and vast underground networks carry millions of passengers back and forth every single day. They remain incredibly popular and honestly essential in countries like the UK, the USA, Japan, and India.
So, the crucial point here is how these networks are actually built from the ground up. Railway networks are categorized globally by their gauge, which is simply the width between the tracks. We have broad gauge, which is anything over 1.5 meters wide, then there's standard gauge at exactly 1.44 meters, which happens to be the standard used in the UK, and it scales down to meter gauge at 1 meter and narrow gauge for anything smaller. This wide variation means trains from one country often can't simply roll onto the tracks of a neighboring country without some massive logistical adjustments.
Looking at the global distribution of our roughly 13 lakh kilometers of railways, there's a really striking dominance. North America holds about 40% of the world's total rail network. In countries like Canada and the US, these incredibly extensive networks are heavily utilized, but actually not so much for passengers. They are primarily used for transporting incredibly bulky goods over vast open distances. Think heavy stuff like ores, grains, and timber.
That brings us to our fourth and final section, transcontinental routes. We are scaling up to the macro level now, looking at railways that span entire continents from coast to coast. Just let this number sink in for a second. 9,322 kilometers. That is the staggering length of the Trans-Siberian Railway. It proudly holds the title of the longest double-tracked electrified transcontinental railway in the entire world.
Let's move to and see how this builds across an entire landmass. The Trans-Siberian route is just an absolute engineering marvel. It starts way out in the west at St. Petersburg, runs straight through the heart of Moscow, crosses the massive Ural Mountains, passes through vital agricultural centers like Chita, and finally terminates all the way in the east at Vladivostok, right on the Pacific coast. It is a critical economic bridge that directly links Asian regions to the lucrative Western European markets.
Similarly, across the Atlantic, we have the 7,050-kilometer Trans-Canadian route. This was constructed back in 1886, originally just to politically unite the western province of British Columbia with the rest of the nation. But it quickly morphed into an economic juggernaut. It links the east coast of Halifax, runs through the bustling industrial hub of Montreal, slices straight through the prairie wheat belt, and finally reaches Vancouver on the west coast. Today it acts as the absolute lifeblood for transporting Canadian wheat and meat.
There are a few other absolute titans of transport definitely worth mentioning here. There's the Union and Pacific Railway, bridging New York to San Francisco over in the US. Down under, the Australian Transcontinental links Perth on the west to Sydney on the east. And of course, in Europe, there's the legendary Orient Express, famously connecting Paris all the way to Istanbul.
Speaking of the Orient Express, here's a truly surprising fact that shows just how game-changing railways actually were. Before this specific line was built, taking the sea route from Paris to Istanbul took a grueling 10 days. The Orient Express slashed that massive journey down to a mere 96 hours. This incredible increase in speed completely transformed regional trade, causing an absolute boom in the export of time-sensitive goods like cheese, wine, and fruit.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating thought to wrap up. We've journeyed today from simple pack mules all the way to 9,000-kilometer electrified railways. As our global transport networks continue to innovate, becoming even faster and far more connected, will advanced land transport eventually outpace our need for short-haul flights? It's definitely something to think about the next time you book a trip. I really hope this explainer helped you visualize the incredible, massive infrastructure that literally keeps our world moving. We'll see you in the next one.